Hello, I am Wallas, the Polish toy guy. Welcome to my new video review. I had a dream. I always wanted to review a toy that's not yet in mass production. And today my dream is fulfilled, for today we are taking a look at the pre-production sample of the Bellerophon, a collector toy from the Armarauders The Last Battalion line. If you haven't heard that name before, no one will blame you, as this is a newly emerging original content franchise created by Mecha Workshop, a company whose co-founder, Don Figueroa, you may have heard of previously, as he was a long-time comic artist and character designer for the Transformers. Now, he and his friends are bent on delivering what we robot fans love best: advanced mecha toys from action-packed settings. To give you a bit of background, Armarauders is a story of conflict between humanity and Wasters, a techno-organic race of world destroyers who made the bad decision to invade Earth. After eventually driving the aggressor off the planet, humans decided to end the Waster problem permanently and go after them into space. The main means of fighting are various types of combat robots of all shapes, sizes and abilities, with the humanoid, highly adaptable machine soldiers known as the Bellerophons being a major part of the force. What we are taking for a spin today is a toy version of one of them, created in alliance with Sen-Ti-Nel and T-Rex, the personal unit of the ongoing comics protagonist, Private First Class Cameron Knox. But before we go any further, remember that this is the pre-production sample and you won't be seeing the finalized product until August, when the mass production versions storm the world. Any structural and quality concerns will most likely be ironed out by then. Now on to Bellerophon himself. Named after the Pegasus-taming, Chimera-slaying Greek mythology hero, he definitely lives up to the name, striking you as a powerful mechanical soldier at first sight. There's something very interesting about this design, really. It seems quite robotic thanks to all the mechanic details popping out everywhere, but there's also something organic about it, with most of its lines being at least partly smooth or curved rather than angular. And even when you see a ton of mold and paint detailing everywhere, when your brain processes the figure from a distance, it seems a rather simple and tidy design. Perhaps this is a result of the nicely unified color scheme, with most of the outer shell having the same light lavender shade and grey for the internal frame and outer finishes. And I'm sure some people will raise an eyebrow at the choice of lavender. It's not a bad color, it's just unusual for the hero robot. Myself, I think it works, making Bellerophon stand out on a shelf populated by Gundams, Optimus Primes and such, and since it covers so much of the mech, in concept it brings the robot close to the ideas of, for example, Yoshiyuki Tomino, who originally wanted to paint the first Gundam as a single shade machine. Speaking of the visuals, did you notice all of these tampo-printed information and warning signs all over the robot? Nothing says real mecha like these, and I find it amusing that some of them describe screw covers as actual maintenance panels. In terms of nice touches, I also like the simple, functional design of the head, especially that under that cover there's a full mechanical skull and sensor array that you can permanently expose by switching to a clear headpiece. The lower legs being intentionally built to look like an elongated version of the forearms is also a nice design choice. I could go on and on about the visual side of this toy, but I don't want to book your entire day, so I hope the pictures integrated into this video will show you everything that I haven't mentioned, and trust me, no matter how much I say, most likely there's still something noteworthy going on here left for you to discover on your own. So, while the visuals of Bellerophon are very attention-stealing, we need to remember that this is a collector toy and discuss what does that mean for collectors. Let's start with the size, because this is a fairly big robot for the modern time average. Standing at roughly 27 cm or 10.5 inch tall in roughly 1:36 scale, it really looks big for a mecha toy, which is great, but also means not all toys will mesh with it well. During this review, you will see it surrounded by toys from Soul of Chogokin, Macross, Gunpla, Transformers and more. And it most likely depends on your own tastes what will look good in Bell's company and what not. I was pleasantly surprised to find that it works well, especially with leader class Transformers and the new Masterpiece scale, but again, you decide what triggers a smiling face for you. And as you will see, this robot begs for standing in a crowd, as with a bit of imagination, it really is a party animal. Structure-wise, Bellerophon is mostly made of solid plastic, both color injected and painted. Good quality too. Yes, you can probably tell it's not perfect everywhere, but again, pre-production sample, I'm sure most of these issues will be gone by the time most of you get your hands on this toy. Also, we have diecast in a few places, which is a nice surprise. It adds nice heft to the figure, which weighs slightly over half a kilogram or 1.2 pounds, which is good for most of the time. The metal is also nicely painted, and without touch you can't spot what is diecast and what is plastic, which I do appreciate. And with all that metal and plastic mass, how does it fare in gentle push test? Judging by that shot fired from a Nerf Elite Strong Arm dart launcher, this hero won't go down easily. Now it's time for the poseability, so let the motion shenanigans commence, and I mean it, because Bellerophon's range of movement is jaw-dropping ridiculous when you add up every single joint found in it. With that said, let me tell you what can be considered the weak spot of its flexibility, and that is the limited outward motion of its hips, which won't go beyond some 35 degrees each, so forget about the more courageous widespreads and the full split. Is it a bummer? At first, yes, but this is done for the whole toy's benefit, as, with all its bulk, Belle would constantly land on its butt if the hips would not limit the down push of its upper body. But the rest is great. I found whopping 98 joints on this thing, including everything that moves on the main body, armor, thrusters and weapons. And I may still have missed something. This makes Bellerophon both great to look at and to play with, especially that aside many swivels and ball joints, we also get ratchet joints in hips, shoulders, knees and elbows that prevent the poses we come up with from collapsing on us. Overall, it feels like an upscaled Super Robot Chogokin on a very good day, but there is one thing that really blows me away, and these are the hands. Including the wrists, each one sports 17, and I mean 17 points of articulation, with ball-jointed knuckles and individually hinged digits. These have to be the most poseable hands I have ever encountered on a toy of this size. You don't get any other pairs in the set because, seriously, what could they possibly add that's not already there? And now let's discuss the weapons. This is a soldier robot and it shows, as in this set we get 16 of them. The most obvious are the heavy double-barreled cannons on the backpack and the smaller guns in the chest, but we also get small guns neatly hidden in the shields. The main weapons, of course, are a pair of solid twin-barrel rifles that firmly connect to the hands using a solid peg and slot system. Being extensions of the arms, they are arguably the most expressive weapons available, and you will have lots of fun thinking how to pose them. And if you like more realism, their ammo clips detach and can be replaced by 4 more added to the set, which don't just rest in the box when not used. Each pair of them has its own dedicated spinning holster, which opens the gates to even more action poses. Really neat guns, but I wish they had their own mounts attachable somewhere on the robot. Right now, if you don't use them, you need to put them away. Pity. But I'm being told this pity is taken care of in the future. If long-range weapons are not your cup of tea, Belle also comes with 2 melee tools, the Tri-Blades, which essentially look like Tron identity discs with beam blades coming out of them. Each one produces the long main blade as well as 2 smaller for support. Or, if you combine 2 sets, you can have them all in the same short size. And all of them are super sharp, so handle them with care or you will do yourself some serious and potentially irreversible damage. The Tri-Blades also have their own holsters with sliding locking mechanism that allows them to spin when attached to the body. Yes, sliding locking. Do not try to detach the top of the holsters to release the weapon. You will either break the part or your fingernails. Also, frankly speaking, of all the arsenal that Belle has, for Tri-Blades I care the least. For some reason they don't strike me as fun despite their functionality, and I'd much rather have them replaced with good old-fashioned swords or beam sabers, which are far more appealing to me and they would still fit the toy's overall concept. Lastly, we have something for fans of Itano Circus. 4 missile launchers built into the shoulder armor and 2 smaller ones hidden in the chest. In total, that gives Bellerophon 92 missiles to blow up things in style. And on this toy, every single one of them is painted, which is worth of praise, as not every mech toy I dealt with in the past covers that. I also mentioned that Bellerophons are highly adaptable robots, and I mean it. What you've seen so far is Cameron's preferred loadout, but if you want to strip Belle of its Knoxness, feel free to do so. Enter the core robot, still looking good but with a very big potential for customization, as now you can see all 24 hardpoints exposed and ready for repurposing. True, some of them work only with specific elements of the mech's loadout, namely the ones used by shields, missile launchers and the main thrusters, but the rest is all a fair game, allowing you to create many different part combinations even with what you already have in the set. And judging by the companion comic book's content, customization achieved through these hardpoints alone is a major aspect of Belle's existence, as tons of visually different variants with the same core body have already been presented. Oh, and to make things even better, 20 of these hardpoints are compatible with 5mm weapons from Transformers, so if you have a few, more joy is to come. Is that the end of customization? No. For one, Bellerophon has a special connector in its back dedicated to the upcoming Pegasus drone unit that will give it ability to fly once docked, and even more, you can separate Belle's arms and legs from the torso to support part swap with other variants appearing as the series expands. For example, the one I anticipate a lot, the Centaurus Commander Mech. So yes, so far this toy has immense functionality and play value, and the fun thing is, there's one more gimmick that sends everyone's jaw to the floor. The chest opens up Pac-Man style not only to reveal a cockpit, but also the fully functional pilot inside. Yes, there's a fully separate action figure inside the cockpit. That we have an opening cockpit is a nice surprise all on its own, but that it actually fits the pilot is another level of impressive. This of course is Cameron Knox, and he's not just sitting there. He plugs into the back of his seat and grips control sticks and has a moving dashboard between his legs. Does it look cool? Oh yes. Is it a pain to place everything in there correctly? Double yes. It probably would have been much easier if Cam himself wasn't packed with so many features, and here's what I mean by these. On his own, Private Knox stands 5 cm or 2 inches tall and is a nice little representation of a mech pilot suit. I admit, his helmet looks a lot like a lightsaber design from Bubblegum Crisis though, and that makes it hard to follow Cam's line of sight. But definitely overall, this is a nice display piece on its own. Now, the features. The most obvious is his poseability, which consists of 20 points of articulation with 2 ball joints for head and torso and 18 swivels for limbs. Again, 2 inches, which makes me consider this toy a Transformers Human Alliance figure on design steroids. And because the joints are mostly peg-based, you can split the figure like a hero masher for limb customization. The only thing I miss here is feet articulation, which would definitely make this figure more stable during posing, as being so light makes it vulnerable even to weak gusts of wind. To counter this, we have a multi-joint display stand that looks like a mix between Nendoroid and Tamashii stage, with a neat Armarauder base that can double as a wearable ID tag. The support arm itself has 2 modes. Peg connection, which can plug both into Cam's back and his backpack, and side clamps, which I do find much less useful as a long-term solution. And the set backpack is increasing the playability of this figure even more. For one, it fits with Cam into the cockpit so he can fight wasters even when he needs to get out of the Bellerophon, because it's both a jetpack with molded thruster nozzles and a double gun pack. The main guns spin out on Cam's shoulders on a swivel ball joint combo that gives them a fair range of motion, though this is finicky as the ball joints like to pop off at the drop of the hat. The guns I like more are stored on the back. I like how unassuming they are in storage, looking like a mechanical pill until you remove them from the rack, splitting them into a nice pair of twin blasters that nicely fit into Cam's hands. So yes, the backpack is really neat, except the said ball joints and how you mount the whole thing on Cam. To do so, you need to take off his head, put the backpack over his neck and reattach the head, which makes me fear of his neck breaking every time I do it. And since neck-head friction is the only thing that keeps the backpack in place, it tends to wobble a bit. Oh, and speaking of fighting the wasters on foot, looks like more functionality is planned for Cam's EVA adventures later on, as the cavities inside the calf armor seem to be designed as storage space for the pilot's future equipment. As if this set wasn't an overkill already, my sample comes with a docking base for Bellerophon, so now we have a 3-in-1 set of fully functional separate toys. At its core, this is exactly what the name suggests, a double-deck docking station designed for maintenance and for pilots' entry into the robot. With that in mind, it honestly reminds me of what can be seen in other examples of real mecha genre, such as Gundam. We have special areas for Belle's feet, we have control screens with its readouts printed on, railings, access ladders, warning lights, warning signs on the floor, even a supporting clamp that plugs into a port in Belle's crotch area. Yes, a textbook proper docking station, and one that does much more than just look. For example, not only can the platforms be connected through an extending catwalk, but they can also move up and down on rails built into their support columns, and using the same connection point, they can also swing outward to make room for Belle's rollout. The columns themselves can also be replugged front and back thanks to multiple slots in the station's base. So if you want to have a very distinct robot out and robot in configurations, that's possible. Other interesting elements of the docking base are, shall we say, storage bins for the main rifles on the sides. And if you feel like an army builder, the edges of the base also feature corresponding hooks and gaps so you can connect multiple Bellerophon sets. I know some of you will be tempted. Speaking of the connectivity, on the back we have also slots for the docking parts that will come with the Pegasus drone. Moreover, if you don't care much for the realistic aspect of the base, you can simply discard the sides with the platforms to change the remains into a proper action base for stabilized or aerial poses. The idea is interesting and looks a lot like a fusion of Macross and Gundam action bases. What is similar to Gunpla stance is how you can extend the height of the support structure. You untab a lock hidden in the back arm, extend the top and tab it back to prevent things from folding in. The Macross bit lies in how the front arm connects to the floor with many front-back positions. The back arm sliding into a cavity under the floor is quite effective and is far more stable than it looks. Regarding the bit that plugs directly into Bellerophon, it's not really hinged, it just has a gear-like inner shape, so when you want to alter its position, you slide the top off, change the angle and put it back in. This is meant to avoid looseness piling up over time in a normal joint, but you need to unplug Bellerophon each time you want to tweak it, as otherwise it's not comfortable to do. So yes, the docking base has a lot of play value and functionality all on its own, but it's not flawless. For one, I don't like the height control mechanism for the columns. You'd think that to alter this aspect, you'd need to push in the button on the sides, do your thing and release the button to lock it again. Not at all, you need to pull the button out, and that releases the columns. While it saves the part count inside, it's also counterintuitive, and unless you have solid fingernails, you may need to hold the columns horizontally to shake the button out of the lock. Also, while the docking base looks nice all on its own, its design doesn't fit Bellerophon in my opinion, as they don't have the same amount of detailing. The base looks a lot like just, well, a toy with many areas of plainly flat surfaces with no textures, which takes away the visual appeal of the whole piece. Gundam action bases handle this a lot better and look much more convincing as sci-fi collector pieces and not simply toys. The pastel blue color of the hull also could be swapped for some nice, more realistic grey. Of course, this shade is supposed to emulate the interior of Bellerophon's mothership, the Tetsudo, but outside of the setting context, this color doesn't fit a robot hangar in my opinion. So, to sum it all up, the Cam Custom Bellerophon is a very impressive, at times even amazing robot toy. Its overall presence is eye-catching, but it's the enormous functionality that makes it stand out. The poseability is simply positively ridiculous at times, and with all of its main accessories, Belle makes very good use of it. The large number of hardpoints and equipment parts, both included and upcoming, also means that you won't get bored with this toy for a long time. Because once you do, it's very likely several official upgrade kits that change the whole experience will already exist to keep you occupied. The fact that the set also includes a fully autonomous, tiny action figure inside, with its own load of gimmicks, will likely also draw people to Belle, as we don't have many toys that do this kind of interaction in such an advanced manner nowadays. I think I could do without the docking base though. While it's loaded with functionality of its own, it seems much less integral to the Bellerophon experience than Cameron, and it doesn't hold my attention as much as the first two components of this set. Its best function for me is by far the action stand, but Belle needs its assistance only in selected battle poses. If you like this kind of accessory, that's great, but for me it's still only an accessory, not essential to the main dish. And I can't stress it enough, except for tiny nitpicks, the main dish is mighty delicious. I admit, working on this review took a lot of time, and it might as well be the most time-consuming single video I have ever created so far, but honestly I'm very happy I had the opportunity in the first place. Like I said, this is my very first pre-production toy to work on, and it pleases me Bellerophon introduced me to the experience. With that, I want to thank people from Mecha Workshop for agreeing to give me a chance and offering me this set. It makes me sad to send it back, but I hope this is not a goodbye, but only a beginning of something greater. And that's all for this video review. I will be back with the next one soon. Until then, stay well. Thank you for watching.